good with you guys.
Good?
Yes.
Grayson, good. Wait. Part 1 is a race war. The story of the Negroes race war starts in the U.S. Army based on 529 Operation Trinity's ago, July 16, 1945. The world changed for the worse. The Manhattan Project nationalized the racial code system of elimination. They were celebrating nuclearization as a staple of Western modernity, while tying it to war and cultural difference. Williams 11. Nuclear weapons have seen as what the weapons symbolize achievements in European American modernity. The post-war future, which the weapons could make as deemed for refugees American frontier, and which Europeans and larger societies at the expense of non-white people victims of nuclear war or nuclear war, which the war and race wars dominating propaganda of the Pentarine Western countries. To encounter with African and the Japanese were settled racial stereotypes of victory. One of the people able to develop those sophisticated weapons incompatibility between Japanese and white culture were interpreted by media either we arrive at their civilization or they wipe out our sex. Seen dropping atomic bombs as a racially motivated attack. At the end of World War II did mark the end of the nuclear race war, but the constant securitization, policing of rogue nations, creating nuclear inequities in a global race war. Matthew 15. Nine says nuclear inequalities have nothing to do with the racism. Inequalities justifying the rise of nuclear breach, breaks nuclear taboo, the reference to shaking conditions, the vision that fuels assertion in Germany. This reveals the racial trauma, colonization, and the penalization even Russian weapons being discovered by the colonizer. Calculation pertaining to risk of failure are all vested in the was placing the domain of great powers. And reasons described to be more dangerous. And the race war isn't just exported globally, but is within our domestic borders and people of color fighting for lives. Black churches being burned in Louisiana. The election while all represent who took for an ethnic minority congressman to go back to the Professor Carter, call Reverend Archbishop in the continent who hates white cops on white nationalists like Dillard slaughtering African Americans while African President trying to start a race war. The 21st century wave of racialized white nationalist nonsense solidified the race war and unified back the time for passivity is over. People of color scream and shout every day. Then response within seconds of affiliation with protest interests and diluted logic, respectability, indoctrination. This sustains the historic works that I scripted to Rodriguez 19. A delusion God's prejudice, believe that prejudice through and claim the bossy beyond the right, the prejudice demands recognition that life is with the integrity or words that we feel somehow touch the brutalized decency is delusion to project the aggression that can be harmed by anything. So, as the right college and universities overrun by watching vocational indoctrination, there's nothing to right as capacity for felony brutality. They're tyranny to violate the ability of decent leaders and inherent danger to collect consciousness when fixating the correction of hypocrisy in the long history of U.S. nation building. And Part 2 is the revolution. Vote after a various combat to mobilize militant elimination and nuclear arsenals, only our vitalization of insurrectionary politics and military reconstructions can mobilize collective resistance to institutional laws again to 11. Combat breathing is the struggle is subject to ending, come to value, air breath and soul are one, our soul is together, so does breath, the materiality, of our open to different ideas from the division of the combat breath is a living practice. Combat breathing exists not struggles, bring together infinite and find the combat breathing is of spatial systems, so much of this, some of her little projects, identify slaughter in the name of courage to reconstruction, distorts with different practices, the use of vital energy, generate capable commodity, the refusal to find solidarity with our method is the functional equivalent to green lighting ontological slaughter. Only combat breath as a praxis and material orientation can build spiritual energy for violent revolution again to 11. Combat breath in the everyday struggle against the colonizer, combat breathing and knows alternative worlds. Country is a whole history that are disfigured. The occupied public can acquire clandestine existence. It is breathing that visualizes the human such an activity of breathing provides spiritual lifeline. Breathing is disrupting the outlands and ontological surrounding. The stability of the colonizer being the stability of the colonizer being disconnected, the hallucinatory wedding that his responses are required. You should reject the distinction between theory and practice, opening ourselves to genealogies and militancy presents possibility for actual social insurgency. She got us and great seven orgasms history from Greece sailors also just with social and these collective imagination that are never appreciated with official history. These moments orders burst open into renewed insurgency. We can trace a genealogy of resistance that draws together hidden history. That moments embody not just practice but are ways of understanding the world. To treat practice that forms knowing means rejecting any of the theory and practice can never be separated. They are always interconnecting. These moments of possibility forming an archipelago possibility, understanding that there's to extend into more. Part 3 is the white debate community. The race war is not just out there, but within the very educational spaces we participate in. Debate is a microcosm for the race war. Black communities being told to come down for a beat to rise. The refusal to provide certainty to around our biggest arguments. Every black community is going to cut the cops off and call them the biggest race. The race war is happening now. It's been inseparable from the internal protocols of debate. The seeming neutrality of fairness limits particularly in question, not predetermined by resolution states, but internal directive questions and skills against the race war. Answers the opposition like the content are deep predictable, but certain strategies like the affirmative part. The race war is here, and you as a judge have to take arms to the side. That's the role about is to vote for the debate who best abolishing the white debate. You should understand this debate is a choice between policy and planning. Their commitment on any policy presupposes a fixed subject by socializing forces, and it hasn't appeared to participate in the correction of itself. And other participants' planning is a motion that engages in militant preservation and fugitive answer to overcome the fetters of home and in Harney 13. Policy passes a curricular against study, the sinless base of the vision, woman is settler fabric, it is against all ability to rooted down policies, always more preservation, more change when those who plan to go particularly being fixed these across the consummatualization lines, he never leave the corrected, the correction itself, and others is always automatic. The participant is a deputy's mirror image, deputies will always lead to change in the crisis. We plan to stay and move, the policy can see it, policy can read it, but it's unintelligible. I've listed a bunch of specifications that are how you can constitute offense that are rolled about, and how you also what are definitions of the subject of which solves like any specials, and anything else is just arbitrary, and an active form of policing against invaders of color. The cross-racial affinity can be only found in moments of revolution. Boss use the belt to find solidarity with a movement that can abolish forms of whiteness. 2017, our enemies have been not benefit by fascism, by democracy, meaningful cross-racial affinity can be found in moments of revolution. Boss for self-defense. So, but every block means that someone is indicating that now she wants to join on a struggle of blackness. The white community is a contradiction. The only thing you can do is work to abolish it. Community is anti-community. It's under common people say as white people are white allies. They have no place for ways to show this unless they embrace blackness. White is out there absence of violence, and people a role to play revolution. Hospitals, the abolition of white communities is a monumental task. Planning, naming capacity for expanded generative improvisation, the use of each other, those in black and those coming to black and my communion differences, but not so rebellion. This is going to be a practice of entering the service. And Joey Georges is on the wrong side of the race, where the animal one see tricks of green churches response against people of color, and debate by abstracting from discussion the recent loss of minority participations for 13. The exclusion atmosphere debate discouraged by students who are facing Nelly culture exclusion, lost minority participation out of competition, not watch rounds where committed because Russian distance from the interior valley, black leaders deal with community norms where the competition to intellectual gymnastics or make rules to escape conversation. A student should not have to just worry about Christian about even if the form is not the same. Discuss racial general conversation. There is no reason we have to start conversation in connection to reality. The question is for which bodies does LD exist? Only sorry, someone who is a dunce event to understand what it's like to see someone to answer multiple operator reason for in one error to efficiently explain how a question could encapsulate another. Our ability to address a exact solution should not be dependent on false debate, but determined by the effort to widen our arguments independently form because prior to forms and prior to content. You should evaluate the efficacy of their form of the arguments prior to you evaluating the contents of whether the arguments are correct in the first place. If we win this argument is a reason why you should use accessibility as the impact filter. Every other argument is a control internally for you being able to treat us in the first place.
Cool. Alright, 3 minutes, you good?
Yep.
Spec shells are bad, right? Spec shells, you said spec shells were policing, right?
Well, we made an argument that there's a list of specifications in the affirmative.
But you said spec shells are policing, right?
No, we've made a specific argument in the context of the affirmative why we have at least elaborated some degree that specification is distinct. We're going to try to make a proof on it's going to be a bad argument.
Okay, I mean, considering you're an E-spec every neg round this tournament, I would probably make that.
One round. And you can make this argument by code switching as well.
Okay, so what side are you on?
The right side.
Cool. What are the sides?
Whiteness versus everyone.
Okay, so you're not on the side of whiteness?
Mm-hmm.
Then why'd you go 3 off and read 3
sure,
theory shells against
I can tell that you're going to try to make this a debate and you're going to lose it. We will make arguments why code switching is a good practice for debate.
What is code switching?
Code switching is the ability to speak the oppressor's language to understand the internal protocols of debate that are
Can
inherent.
a KKK members code switch?
Can a KKK member code switch? No, because they won't engage in militant revolution ever.
Okay,
We have
so
obviously
revolution is a
engaged.
necessary
Okay, listen.
aspect. No, I'm asking you.
Here's the link differential between me and you. I've engaged in militant revolution in multiple rounds. I've chosen to code switch so I can understand what the other side is saying.
Okay, so as long as you read like spec race war, you can be anti-black.
What?
I mean,
No, we have made
we'll get to
specific
that.
arguments why militancy in the context of the affirmative is a good idea.
Okay, so what does the app do, or why should the judges do that?
The militancy is a good idea, and we think it's a good method to fight the race war.
Do you think reading the race war is always a good strategy?
Do I think reading the race war is always a good
Or
strategy?
reading this race war app is always a good strategy?
I think that combat breath is a good method to deconstruct the race war.
Okay, why'd you flip neg and dubs?
Why did I flip neg and dubs?
Yeah.
2 reasons. Again.
If you're such a race warrior, then why'd you just decide to LARP instead?
So we've made a couple of arguments. Again, you can make this a debate, and we will
Actually, 2 T-shells. Yeah.
Also, the race war is a question of life and death for minorities, which means you policing when I can sort of choose.
If it's a question of life and death between minorities, I'm choosing. If it's a question of life and death between minorities, how many times has you voted?
How many times do you need me to explain the codes?
No, I'm asking you. By voting as a result of voting for your app, how many black deaths have increased?
So I think you misunderstand the app. We don't claim pre-fiat solvency. The only time we'll go for reasons as to why our model debate is a good idea is if we read T framework or.
Okay, so you don't claim pre-fiat solvency, but form precludes content.
The form precludes content argument is an argument about accessibility, which controls internally to being able to debate.
Okay, how can you determine if someone is on X side or Y side?
So there's a couple of arguments. We said that whiteness is not phenotypical, but a model of thinking that regurgitates logical respectability and continues like the oppression of minority individuals. We have said that individuals.
Is the app pessimistic or optimistic?
We would say that there are certain moments of sociality that we can affirm that are optimistic, but there are moments of pessimism that we can use in order to deconstruct certain
Is progress possible for minorities?
Yeah.
Really?
For example,
here's my question. What does the app advocacy look like?
What does the app advocacy look like?
Yeah.
The BPP, the extension of that in international relations to the Dell Panthers. The BPP for an affirmation of sociality and militant insurrection. For example, they set up police patrols as an affirmation of militancy, while at the same time they helped kids in education because they knew that it's not just the nation state that's at risk when colonial logics are used, but it's also the body.
Okay, it's off. It's sent, by the way. Let me know when everyone's good. Just for you, Grace. Grace.
I can say to put my phone next to this.
You good? Oh, my bad. You can kick Smith 13 now if you want.
Alright, good.
Alright. This is a stick on taking the after the battle. There's nothing you can do about the universal professionalized that once he's academically reported to still in the undercommons mode minority routine. The only possible relation to the university is criminal pitch, refuge, and alignment when only can the sneak the seal of the founding missions of first intellectual goes upstairs. Only rational labors are necessary as this is welcome into the undercommons alignment over the revolution is still trying to teaching the professional operation of the state is not teaching a whole social capacity, but only the visible other side of teaching toward the commitment of bureaucratic organization. And one may give it a chance to be pragmatic, but one hides out with one hand go full in the other commons always the unseen neighborhood. And second, interpretation must prevent a concrete subject of the operationalization of the objects of their specific political institutions outside of the debate community. The one see violation there affirms that the integration power relations, but without tying integration specific mechanisms outside of the debate community, they become the revolutionary limits and analysis of one scenario instead of really trying to determine how revolutionary practices and the arm trap also just that was counter revolutionary inclusion clauses, which independent of negative reference the inclusion about helping give you progress from philosophical abstraction tertiary comes to engage political appeals. You need a little analysis of the relation material conditions that they face and make it a less relevant for people of color. So looks at you. Contemporary discourse directed which specialized audience of radical thinking is not just point impact and critical rate with the notion of authority must be reflecting habits of being guys are discussing media rules instead of radical with the concrete also theories that move to discourse theoretical direction that disrupt critical practice which would make support radical liberation. Second, revolutionary education contextualized analysis of branch around visual training essential in order to provide a political training which makes effective more advocates ignoring politics only sees the power which uniquely hurts people economy give that rule of fight power in the halls of power and on road to the Nixon to get policies are a codification of how to organize about the changeables how organized as ready for policy to adopt for no for people of color policies that get more relevant this year we have to with the block difference we have to start fighting with an issue for our own grassroots organizing effective politics we access elected officials have an official constituent for re-election the work of the which we stand on a place that take the shaping of advance while you're getting the policy arena we can take that advance in the next level now teams before something the debate about whether the negative can effectively contest their claims of the conversation which is better because then reading on the negative given the object of critique which includes your true contest and create evidence that default being interpretation be doing it out debate is good reasonably just like judgment which intensifies the constant debates about debates even it's inevitable we should try to minimize that norms to be dropped and second norms to be down third up chemical legs you have to absent the use of the term race war the discourse of race wars a racist tool used provoking their narrative white genocide the racist myth is used to justify actual acts of linked church resistance Miller 1227 the idea reserved during movements activism and white racism painting themselves as the victims because white racism they colonized a large number of white people organizations constantly begin with white colonization anxiety over being outnumbered by Native Americans that begin 2 centuries of they argued you had emancipation you had race wars and the use of the pull on our they had white choice it takes apocalyptic on the other resources part of that the slogan we must secure the existence of our people reflecting demographic anxiety the hard white supremacy the preoccupation with racial ideas that politically usable the nature of the charge of all in our rhetoric that achieve power the legacy the racial demagogue arguments that reduce force and radical first the endorse the Avenue endorse all of it as Vincent what's all that take the granted impact of the role have on our decisions outside around beliefs that we hold students of color being held on our treatment where racism that image must be held from our accountable winning debate because the guard debate caused by their Smith evidence as net benefits not for them Capital they have abs their use of the reminder whether term minorities racism involved they only can use either for the minority congressman this freak 15 these are minorities offensive should be replaced with people of color both motion trust that use something minorities that dimensions which opposed to people covered by some the majority or society as a carries historical use of bias based on ethnicity political beliefs that everyone needs to get teaching understanding and awareness of critical education and constructive strategies for resolving conflict that minorities is problematic term minorities internalizes less than other groups and allows for subjugation whiteness as well as empowerment as on the wrong side of the race for this Ferguson 14 policies influence our thoughts and influence our actions small part of the larger group that terms on a synonym of myriad of people of color considering the people lesser status of powerless the majority to knows power majority when majority of opinions able to silence the problem that fit them desire for black projects identity which we never fully reach which urge political determined which identities all legitimacy world responsibility for the mess that is traversing fields Adam 1 policy we first of all film with the survival which we have the order of the social rights of the visualized idea which we never see seen coincide because only seeing process ourselves as part of closing out the political world that notions of optimism future built on the premise that any negation signal around the child's essential order fulfilled is from like which you criticize the politics Adam 2 politics and putting negativity the realization that the child's embodiment futurity whatever refugees must be used as threats to social order future no even a future inherent structure political rise and negation or sustain self which force any sign to deviate to position ontological and administrative or coincidence can have to overkill the standing 11 laws made possible the reproduction queer bond celebrations nothing and like all queer life because so imagine one of the four times the human rights life and whereas a queer and have a zone that oracles bonds was nothing ignore arguments regarding material like queerness a great idea to the situation which only our ontology claiming expansive reality because it's sailing too. So this glove is meant to prove that violation happened when measured dictators or made to understand how the thing is statistically say Trump statistically ensure the head of cells never found his idea to be a company causes never determined statistically with fragments company alternative based that type of affirmation queer activity rejected when is the view to receive the benefit of realizing structural positionality cried and animal 3 rather than rejecting negativity consider basing and refuses the hope itself nothing in short or symbolic for the actual system that defines us or expose that access social orders of the queer business faith and politics verbs that couldn't expose the social reality learning to fantasy necessary or sustain and let's keep the grand priority following the 6 cell accountability people on the right side of the race will also card news that they can they can have news whole race to talk about threatening nuke them they can nuke them if they're a race and not case not first top level they shouldn't get a cookie for capitalizing off the race for the so like read this out one of these computer for the most contradictory strategy otherwise like an idle app and you literally went through all three shells and straight down off this means that you they're all solve their claims on the behavior because all the other debates that they choose to be on the other side they got for T and other debates check their neck making you red so couple position almost every other on this matter because it means they don't they link to their own impacts and about the particles of debate which means that they obviously don't solve certainty not being invited around opposite they don't do anything about it but if I want to risk and details on the wrong side they get off it because they they're commodifying violence for one of those the right side of people active action called by that which means that well that means that independent birth on the reason that's why they should lose or premeditated murder which I would because they knew it was something anyway no vote negative it's not just a story we should endorse obviously they don't have an explanation of voting out methods built of institutional change otherwise structure make it sorry debate about a large for people who wants to get a competitive incentive that destroying the impact of the outcome from the fact that they other times that determine rating on the next they're just complicit any of the sounds except they use the impact virus and now the first thing the resource given fuels of white retaliation was against a resource and alien against Helton 16 after Snyder claiming he wanted to kill white people no one was louder than David Duke this said to the black people who want to target the fundamentality of the white people who want to target blacks on the same race where things like jihadism the struggles in between religion between the people who want that war the people who don't even if you don't race or you're against nothing else true that Duke and other white nationalists and either skills working together so you feel using the terminology of victims that actually disempowering or opposite individuals agency developed acts this is the use of survivor sense like so victim most individuals agency and ability to fight back the dimensions interstate those who experience surviving mentoring a victim dimension agency and all the kids not first I'm on the right side of the race so I've been calling ourselves out for whiteness for 7 minutes which is independent reasons that's why I should reject all the arguments why I'm on the wrong side of the race so they necessarily preempted me which is anti-black because the logic of preemption by saying I'm going to reach something that is allows for things like violence against black people like for example cop shooting a black person because they're going to do something that they don't even know also on the street kind of like reference our theories that key to help you lead to your practice our arguments that you cannot even gain any solvency which means that shell it controls the internal to any assholes because otherwise you can actually people get the material benefits coming from insofar as there's no material benefits that means that you're just on the wrong side of the race or trying to stay in your ivory towers and be able to do whatever you want or just talk about what you want but you'll never actually make any solution with me independently that if unless you there's a double either the shell is true which means they should lose or the shell is not true which means that you should necessarily not be able to vote for them before they don't do anything.
Okay, are you good?
I'm good.
An argument on the case was that perp cons outweigh because they're like premeditated murder. Let's talk about all the contradictions in the 1 and C. Edelman and political operationalization. How is this not a contradiction?
Sure. Our arguments about how you can like use your advocacy to like make. Okay, firstly, we can test the app on multiple layers. This is just like a question of like negation theory. Okay. And secondly, they do not contradict. Rather, it's the optimistic mindset in which you can like create solutions. So I'm going to testing the like.
Is futurity bad?
What?
Futurity bad.
Optimism within the political.
Is futurity bad?
Futurity in the context of the app is best.
What is futurity?
The idea in which we can like reform and like create solutions within the political.
Okay, sounds good. That sounds like what the shell is saying. Let's talk about the shell.
Let's
talk about the shell. What is the implication of this argument?
Yeah, sure. So you can't get any access to the internal links to any of your arguments within the app because you don't have any way in which you can like create solvency within political institutions outside the base.
So we need to defend solvency within political institutions.
Not political institutions. Like the argument is you have to have some way in which you can like use your advocacy and be able to apply in the real world. It doesn't have to be like a political like.
Wait, why doesn't the app do that? Why can't affirmation of sociality and militancy not be applied in the real world? I don't understand.
Can you repeat that question?
I
mean, no, they can, but you don't have any strategies for it. Which means
okay. Let's stick on the timeline. Why do you think it's okay to steal from people of color?
I mean, wait, pardon me. Can you repeat that question? Who did you steal this from? Because firstly, this is George Beanie's, and you read it, so I don't think it's a question you asking me. If you want to talk about performative contradictions, we can have that debate.
Okay, sure. I mean, I think this one is filled with contradictions. Let's talk about the discourse pick. You said that the discourse the race war is bad.
Yeah.
Why is this true? Is it the use of the phrase war, or what specifically about the word race war is bad?
Okay, the term race war is something that's bad because it propagates like the idea that whites are victims of genocide.
How so?
Yeah, sure. The Miller 1227 evidence, do you want to like read you lines?
Wait,
or, like,
hold on. Our our evidence is our case is just that like white people are literally shooting people of color. They're not the victims, they're the perpetrators. That is the race war. How does this make sense at all?
Yeah, sure. Our argument is like what the term race war would like proceed, or like how people would necessarily
Why do
take
guns matter?
Okay, I mean, firstly, the Smith evidence and the Vincent evidence.
The
And like,
Smith evidence is about a prioris, so what's the next argument?
Smith wrote about a prioris.
Yes, the card is about a prioris, but go on.
Okay, so firstly, I would disagree with that. Secondly, the Vincent evidence talks about discourse comes first in round because it controls the internally to like every other like argument. Also, your form before content distinction that you made in the AC, I think would be something.
All right, sounds good. The Edelman K, what is his theory of race?
Race? Yeah, sure. So Edelman explains all violence through the concept of futurism and like no baby, no future. So like the argument here is that like, you want to explain like
what is Edelman's explanation for 4 cops showing up to Amado Diallo's door and shooting him 41 times?
Deviancy from the notions of queerness that deviate from like the Western minimum.
So what is queerness?
The K, like the way that I define it within the critique is deviancy from the Western minimum.
Okay.
That's what it like includes, or that's what the violence explains.
All right, sounds good. Starting prep now. Steps to the counterpoint Ks.
K is dispo, countenance, or conduct.
Sounds good.
Also, I'm a person of color, so no white.
I'm 18 CX though.
Okay.
Does Edelman rely on the psychoanalytic theory of the world?
I mean, it doesn't rely on it, but it has psychoanalytic warrants.
Wait, what's that? Yeah, so that means it does rely on it, all right?
No, some of the warrants can be like derivative from like, psychoanalysis, but others are like materially like produced. So like, I don't have to win psychoanalysis to win the critique. You have a sheet of paper. Another sheet of paper. Also, you got how I skipped the grant priority evidence, right?
Is that on the show?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Case? Okay. Stop for up 20 seconds.
Order.
Give me a second.
just one, or it's just one card that's being read, so can I just put in the text to the?
Yeah.
Any of you all?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay, that's, all right. Order is case, the shell, the critique, and then the counter plans in this order. First, stick up. Second, race word pick. Third, minority word pick. Fourth, people on the like fourth advantage type counter plan there. Or the last counter plan that's going to be dropped. There will be like some arguments that will be flagged, like in certain places. I'll just make sure to be clear when I am.
Okay.
You said there's a new op?
It's kind of like a paragraph. No, there's no. Let's just say that.
Sus.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Overview, there's a race where people of color fight for the last place. There's a white surgery shooting showing you 5 minutes, 0 right, and not by fashion president, which means materially conspired representation, which means because people are literally fighting for the last, which means representation to this big global liberalization, the latest for a race where you are the time of global consideration, extermination, serving the Manhattan right? This is by global global or Western policing, circulation, but after from coming as an active form insurgency against the logical rate construction, indeed, but the inherently new logistics, vitalizing areas for militants of this is the only ethical call in the face of undead violence. You say I've read differentiated other rounds, working with survival planning, should bring how you evaluate the debate color. The bidders don't know if it's always safe for a militancy debate space, and they also prove why disclosing yourself the race where pivotal debaters can navigate spaces where rounds will be hostile. Second, not reading the race where every single round is built in planning, playing the other side teaches to break down the logic of white supremacy and turn it strict against itself. They can like differential theories that we've used this in a few runs as a means to understand the other side of the race where the mathematics does that. Also, they said per concept and premeditated murder, while at the same time they have multiple contradictions. For example, they're reading of things like political operationalization is a good thing, while at the same time reading analyzing that futurity is bad is a form of contradiction, which means they link back to this off and said a double form of contradiction, which means that operates on a higher level. Reason why it comes back on you. Also, second independently though, a proper presumption. We will reflect the very understandings of presumption. The usage of presumption places the burden of rejoinder on people of color to change larger structures when we reframe what it means to have solvency, just survival, which is the independent when issues, and they put burdens on people of color, which also links to the university arguments, because on the counterplanners, we made specific arguments that audience want to see why the university doesn't do anything in the process from just a process debating about the race war is a good idea, which is also impacting the first counterplan that still laid in evidence. One point, this is inevitable when there's a race war, which means it is a question tried out for the affirmative still laid in evidence. Also, in the order of the process debating about militancy means we can generate strategies to overcome circumvention, which result that using the terminology of victim with this sort of representation for striking will be impacted because it abstracts away from materiality, which just sort of proves our Smith evidence about how debaters like Joe Georges will always try to abstract arguments out on the rights of the race war. We answer to the rest of the debate. They say preemption in the form of black. This argument is a form of policing. Obviously, not to engage in preemption in the one issue, which is proves a form of contradiction. And second is linked to women arguments why it discusses the debate. It means we get a better debate about the race war, which we outlays all their options. The shell stuff will be answered on the shell. The shell. Let us weigh the case one way debate itself as a microcosm for the race war, which means framers question taking side seconds regarding the evidence and the merits of the model of hostile third. Anything else goes on agency, which they say matters counter to tradition debaters. Debates about nuclear arsenals must begin with the resistance tries to say kids. The race war themselves are often after still considered with nuclear arsenals being bad, which means that a set of functional limit and political organization can still operate in the world of the affirmative. We just made arguments why that should have a TLO. So using the race war, there's a race war to set their model sustains the internal protocols debate. They're complicit in the race war once stop changes in nuclear policy for capital complacency work within the very institutions that are literally killing racialized bodies while preserving a game that pathologizes militants. The active exclusionist teams that refuse the internal protocols of policy making like a LBR like just with not getting invited procedure around purpose proves the dialogue is a neutral but an active form of policing the rest of the race where their cards about how things like clash of political organizational good. We have impacted that dialogue. It's used to skew debates about things like logistics and especially makes it impossible for debaters of color to actually mobilize resistance against race war, which they independent of reasons why they engage in the active policing of debaters of color. The conditionality, contradictions, and conditionality frames are but each one is white double speak is the same logic that less liberals saying they can be in favor of racial equality but still support things like consular pro-war because that trains debaters to be ethnically detached, which makes them double agents of the race war, which always all their arguments. A point is the fact that I can give it a sufficient one here for the rest of the ones. You shelf considering the fact that when both conditionality, B point is premeditated murder. That was an argument they made of the ones which is through the conditionality or picks or word picks or a voting issue because they steal the app and don't debate the nuances and militancy. They change the frame of the debate to words rather than desirable labels and movements, which text strategy for the race war steal the app. When stealing from people of color is bad in a voting issue means that they can functionally stealing from people of color is a voting issue means they can literally just professionalize all their labor and all their active research on. Second, permutation is stealing for and back. Third, no reason why the university matters. Honorable for a link to the university is good debates about the race work and obviously mobilize to operationalize certain resistance strategies. The minority pick. One point is that these forms of representations are always used to abstract for materiality, which result their often is also a contradiction with the it's also a contradiction with their Edelman arguments. Since Edelman would make arguments why things like languages and determinants and relies on psychoanalytic theory, so reason it's a form of contradiction. Also, independently, we made arguments as minorities can affirm coalitional strategies by using the word the last counter plan is horrible and doesn't make any sense between the fact that we made specific arguments and want to see why they wouldn't be able to acquire use Edelman with opening lecture and he doesn't have a theory of race, which means that it's just racist and worst case scenario the permutation solves.
4 minutes of prep starting now. Are there any responses to Edelman?
Yeah.
Other than perfcons?
Perfcons, permutation solves, coalition arguments.
Perm solves where?
That was the last sentence of the one here.
No, that was on the analytic counterplan. What was the stuff?
No, that was right after Edelman.
Right,
Edelman's
so
theory
what
is
was-
racist. He doesn't have a theory of race.
Okay. No, what were the arguments made in this speech?
In the Edelman?
Yes, you said Edelman is racist.
Edelman is racist. He doesn't have a theory of race.
No, wait, where did you say that?
It was literally the last line.
Okay,
Also,
send me the doc that oh actually, can I pause press? Send me like all the voting issue stuff, like the paragraph arguments, please.
no, they're analytics. I shouldn't have to flash them.
Okay, that's fine.
Just like you don't flash like your tuners to Kant or any other argument.
I actually do, but
I mean,
I don't write to them as I extend them. What was the presumption argument?
We have flipped the usage of presumption. It places a burden of rejoinder on people of color to change larger structures when we have reframed what it means to have solvency as simply survival. This is an independent voting issue because it proves that you have put a burden on people of color as to what they have to do in terms of changing the competitive incentives of the game and things like that, which is probably bad considering like placing a burden on someone but you shouldn't have to.
So placing a burden is bad?
It's not necessarily that. It's placing a burden on people of color to
I'm not,
resist
like,
repression,
coming
and you're
up.
blaming people of color for what is happening and not changing institutions, which is the logic that recreates the race war.
Okay, materiality outweighs reps, right?
Huh?
So you said materiality outweighs reps, right? Because people are dying?
Yes, that's an argument.
Okay, cool. So if you say the N-word, does it matter if like the app solves?
So we have made arguments why the manifestation of these racial ideologies is always sort of perpetrated in material ways, which is a reason as to why things like the affirmative matter in terms of mobilizing forms of militancy in order to deconstruct those material forms of violence. Yes.
Okay,
that's
why is conditionality a voting issue?
8 point is white doublespeak. It lets you, what's it called? It's the same logic that lets liberals claim to be in favor of racial equality but still support things like content-of welfare cuts. That trains debaters to be ethically detached, which makes them double agents in the race war. They will advocate for things like the critique alternative.
Okay, why word fix it? No, I don't know.
Why word based a voting issue?
Yeah.
They steal the app and don't debate the nuances of militancy. They change the frame of debate to words rather than desirability of militant movements, which decks strategies for the race war, which we can couple with the materiality winning arguments.
Cool.
Excuse me.
You're not excused. What are the responses to minority?
A couple of responses. One is coalition building. By sort of, Arguments indicates that using the word minority sort of allows us to create a larger coalitional strategy where everyone is included within the one word.
Cool.
Also, there was a perfon argument where some of your evidence also uses the phrase minority, which means it applies to you.
No, it doesn't. Like where?
I control F minority, and I saw it in the first.
In the card that says minority is bad.
Yeah. No. That's my first card. The university professionalizes the mode and
Wait, where's it highlighted?
It doesn't matter. It's
that's-
just a question of your representations, right? So if you're going to read evidence in round that says the same words, it's probably bad too.
We can have that.
We can.
6 minutes, good. The order is, it's an overview. Dude, I'm just gonna, there's so much messy stuff. That's his fault. Alright, okay, so here's what's gonna happen. Start on the app page. We're gonna deal with all the independent voter, whatever stuff on the case page. Then after that, there's gonna be
signpost when you're going to the
yeah, okay. I got you. Indeed. Okay, so alright, so it's just gonna be framing issues there, and then it's gonna be minority word pick, word pass.
Sweet. Okay.
Cool. Is anybody not ready?
The overview is that you can see that if there's a risk that a DT is on the wrong side of the race war, that means you should automatically vote negative because that is a performance contradiction because they've been doing things that actually try to stop the race war. That means that they're just being necessarily trying to co-opt the movement and destroy any possibility of the right side being able to do anything. This was conceded on the framing issue. That's why a DT has done things that are banned. The pass which means independently affecting. There's a risk that they're on the wrong side. That means you should independently vote negative. This was conceded, which wait, is that first thing for we're going to do that later. But first we're going to kick all the flows except for clear pessimism. We're just going to go for one of the word picks as an independent reason to jump them, but we're not going to go for the advocacy, which means that the only thing we're going to go for is group pessimism. However, first on the we go the start. First you see presumption is voting issue. However, it's a burden. It's not the burden of majority. You can just prove that presumption flows one side or the other. The proves the side of people of color. As far as it's true that you can just say presumption flows for no which is necessarily better. Also, independently, there is no offense. It's not racist for me to say that offense would flow one side or another. Rather, it's a question of whether or not the structure of the we should be actually be able to frame arguments in one way or another. Also, you say preemption is anti-black. However, you say I preempt. However, there's no one has argued. Never pointed out a place in which I have preempted. Whereas you just said they preempt you, which is independent. Reason to jump to perform contradiction. However, it's not necessarily you have no defense on the target, which means if there's a risk that you preempted, that means that you were anti-black, which means you're on the wrong side of the race. Whereas we're going to win that you are being preempted by saying that Joey's going to read tricks and is inevitable. Now, the idea of what preemption is something that is not necessarily bad because preemption is the notion that you're trying to stop me from doing something before I even do. It's the exact same logic that cops do before they shoot black people when they say that they are probably going to shoot someone, probably going to steal someone, which is independent reason to jump. This was conceded, which is independent representation reason to jump, and all on the minority pick. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to the teen element stuff later. Minority pick.
First across by the Vincent evidence here, you cannot divorce the sheep from the flow. The argument here is that representation preclude everything else in the round because the only thing that matters within this round, the only thing that actually carries out the rest of the round is the discourse. Now the argument here is that the materiality is something that is just completely not controlled by the app because the other something that's illusionary. Firstly, it's not the discourse, the only thing that matters because it's in debates. It's all words, not material action. You say people are dying, but the app, the CX was embarrassing on the issue. They literally said the app does nothing on it, which means that you can look at this as a fiat illusory type claim because the app literally solves nothing. As far as it's true, that means you should necessarily reject it and counter their argument because the materiality the app claims is an issue is not solved for by the arguments. For example, that's like saying, extinction outweighs me saying the N-word because which conflicts the post and pre-op distinction. As far as you can see, the Vincent evidence, that means the highest layer of this round must be representation. This means that above everything else, you can perform a contradiction on the substantive layer. The argument here is that even if I knew it was bad, it's not a question of representations within the round. Whether if I would that the representations are bad, that means A point. They're worse to me because they're on the wrong side of the race point. That is a premeditated murder on that flow and B point. That means that seriously reject the rest of the argument. You're not doing anything. So the words are most important. Only thing that actually happened and impacted discourse.
Yeah, so let's go to the minority argument.
Firstly, you say coalition, but how do you literally consider our argument is something you can say people of color instead, which means that you can have coalition building that is not using the word minority. You can see both pieces of evidence that show how it is used to lessen and demonize people by allowing subjugation to whiteness as well as the Ferguson 14 evidence that shows that it is an empowerment of those on the wrong side of the race war. As far as it's true that the Ferguson 14 evidence proves that it allows whiteness to infiltrate and be able to take over, subjugate those black people. Like for example, a majority wins and majority, like for example, think of it as a winner takes all system. Those who are not in the majority would always just be able to be subjugated by the majority, which means that you calling them that is something that allows them to internalize and not process it as something. This is independently conceded, which means the independent reason to drop them on the performative flow. On the capital 10, now you can see that 315 evidence that show it is racist and violent. As far as it's true, that means they have something that's actively racist, which is a form of whiteness, which means insofar as it's true, that means that there's another application of being on the wrong side of the race war. As far as it's true, I mean, you should independently jump them right here, right now, because they're on the wrong side of the race war, which is necessarily worse. As far as they're trying to celebrate the race war, the what is when they are on the wrong side, which means they're a wolf in sheep's clothing by your own words. Now let's go to the rest of the argument. Now, firstly, this precludes all their arguments. As far as you can see, that Vincent is high here, so all their arguments about conditionality being a voting issue or picks being a voting issue things that are on the representation level, as far as the question of our discourse within rounds. Just because I read an argument doesn't mean just because I read an argument that does not mean it has any impact in this debate, which means that you should necessarily reject it on face. Now, rest of the arguments, you say T and Edelman Perfcon. Look at that right now. The T indicator on Perfcon scores, they're not unconditional, which means behind the two-arc can only go for one since they do not contradict as once he's just testing the two-arc in a certain position. Also, you should view the round through a lens of negation theories. If he's testing, and next you need to prove the app is bad on one, well, we're wrong, which means allowing several errors that in-depth consultation trying to do quality education, fully understanding the app, but also it's an either or situation. The K is saying that the app is at a different level, which means we don't say that the T is something that we endorse, rather we're saying that T is something that is, but the app just falls under T, the method, which means that the K would be better, which means that we're just contesting app on multiple layers, not defending them. But also, they've never given any reason as to why the framing of the K would necessarily care about, which means insofar as we don't endorse it, I always mean link because it's falsely about K, which means we always have link differential. As far as this two means you cannot vote on the performance contradiction. Also, for the rest of our arguments, don't let them try to don't go mining for perfcons that they're going to be making in the 2AR. It's a question of what is happening right now within this round, and they've conceded that they have something that is actively racist, and they've conceded that on the performative contradiction level, if they are on the wrong side of the race war, if there's a risk if they're on the wrong side of the race war, which was made in the overview, you should necessarily drop them on face, which means any sign of whiteness is something that proves that you're on the wrong side. Yeah, we're actually a kick queer pessimism. It was dispositional. We're not going for it. Go to the app page again. We've one of the reasons that's why you should lose on performative level. We're still win more reasons for this. Now, firstly, you should not be able to vote on any performance contradictions as far as representations, including discourse at the highest level, which means that their percons argument necessarily goes away. So you should reject any arguments that you make in the next piece. And also, you can see the top level argument that shows how you should not be getting cookie for capitalizing off the race war because you selectively read the sound versus you read other sounds like I law, which means you cannot just switch sides in the middle of the race war, saying oh, I wanted to be a Nazi for a day because I wanted to fit in the wrong side of the war. And as far as it's true, I mean that is just the logic of being able to switch sides whenever you want, which sees that I can be on the Confederate side of the war because they would have accepted me, or it would be better, which is independent reason as to why they're contradicting this matters because they don't link to their impact, which means you can see the double line as far as either you're commodifying violence reform on those on the wrong side, and people the anti-factor calls by you, and you defend it, which is independent for kind of outweighs. So here's how you from the round. Minority is a word that is racist, and they have not contested that. You can coalition build through other things, and materiality doesn't matter. It's our words within this round because they don't solve for shit.
Wait, 20 seconds. The order is going to be condo bad, the case, the race word pick. On the race word, or where do you have this Perfcon dump float between T and what's it called? And Edelman?
I put it all at the bottom of the theory shell.
Okay, so I would go there after.
So get the order in?
The order is the condo bad, wherever you have the phrase white doublespeak. Then it'll be the Perfcon debate, and then it'll be the race war word pick. Case and the race war word pick. All right.
The race war word pick?
Sorry, the minority word pick.
Okay.
All right.
Too late.
All right, good?
Yep.
Joey George has just conceded conditionality is bad in a voting issue. You should not be doing that in Octos. There's two framing issues on how you should follow this page. One point is they've conceded reasons why it outweighs every other flow since I wasn't able to engage with every other argument since you read them conditionally. This was just a conceded argument on the flow, which means I wasn't able to respond to the Vincent or the race word pick. These were just dropped arguments in the one. And the two, their white doublespeak argument. It is an issue of representation because it creates detached debaters where individuals can advocate for contradicting positions like queer pest and things like futurity being good or political scenario playing being a good idea. That this less liberals claim in favor of racial equality, but still support things like cultural pro welfare because that trains debaters to be ethnically attached, which makes double agents of the race war, which outweighs all their performing contradiction arguments because it proves that they've continued to call us about at the same time they engage in that same sort of rhetoric, which means that worst case scenario, this argument is terminally non-unique on both sides, or two, we have one reasons why it outweighs because we weren't able to engage with the rest of the flows. Look, this weighing argument was conceded, and all their arguments about premeditated murder mattering or contradictions knowing mattering. They conceded that it's a double perversion or contradiction, and they read a perfcon, and then they engage in that perfcon again, which means it also allows out of them. They also concede a cloning picture of footing because they steal the F and don't debate the nuances of militancy. They're focused on representation. They're focused on linguistic means that change the frame of the debates with words rather than the desirability of militant movements, which is deck strategies for the race where that way every law other this means that materiality we can never join material movements to stop the race war, which also means you should just reject the Vincent Flow and the race word pick. And it's a reason why you shouldn't evaluate representation, even if representation is the first movement argues why their representations are bad, and how they shift the scale away from debates about militancy and nuanced debates about militancy. The only way people of color can talk, which means it comes on a prior layer. Look, these arguments were just conceded and always on strength of language, means there's only a risk that it matters. Vincent is a question of representation. Yes, white doublespeak means that you were able to advocate for two different positions at two different times and recreate forms of white fluidity, which is a question of representation, which means it outweighs, they've conceded conditionality, also outweighs because it controls internally to me being able to actually engage in your arguments. It's game over. Viv conceded two arguments to switching sides, which means you should feel very uncomfortable voting for this argument. One point is survival planning should frame how you evaluate the perfcon color. Debaters don't know if it's always safe to throw militancy in front of certain judges, which means we should be able to navigate household spaces. However, we see that second, not reading the race where every single round is militant planning. Playing the other side means that teaches us to break down the logic of white supremacy. In turn, it's tricks against itself, which independently proves all the arguments. And now I'm going to go for the form of contradiction as a reason why he also engages in the same sort of performative logic of whiteness. And it is like a perfcon is a question of representation, which means it comes first. So we cannot switch sides. I've already won as to why I'm not on the wrong side of the race. We're switching sides is good, and we're the only ones that have actually read militancy and stood around the perfcon. Here is the explanation for the perfcon, reading things like Edelman, while at the same time going for a theory relies on a very logical futurity and the logic of the political. I'll do the line debate here, since all of your arguments are horrible. You say they're not unconditional. That's not a reason. This just proves conditional ethics always wreck things like representations, and your Vincent evidence would be a reason why you can't read two contradictory representations. They say they're right through a lens negation theory. This is also answered by the Vincent evidence that representations come first. If you had contradictory representation for forming contradiction outweighs, which is an argument they made. They say there are different issues. That doesn't matter since they're still contradicting. And you say frame the K wouldn't care about this. Yes, it would. It literally says futurity is bad, while at the same time they engage in argument that says political operationalization.
Operationalization. You can stop recording now.